BYU is looking at a situation right now where they have started winter workouts. Ryan Phillips and his staff are starting to put BYU's feet to the proverbial fire when it comes to this football program. And I can tell you, talking with enough players that I've talked to over the past 2 seasons, this time, speaking of January, February, leading into spring ball, is one of the most important times for any college football program, because this is the time for guys to make gains. And what that is, gaining weight, gaining strength, working on speed, and getting your body tuned to where you can go out in spring ball, either secure your starting spot, move up the depth chart, become a rotation piece, or continue to just develop and become a piece that can be a guy that BYU can count on down the line. Ryan Phillips is transforming guys right now, but there are still needs on this BYU roster in terms of what they probably need to pull out of the portal to make this roster what I would consider to be contender worthy in the Big 12 and ultimately in the dream of chasing a college football playoff berth this fall. Now, those positions that BYU is still looking for, are they positions that are going to make or break this BYU football program? Not in my opinion, but they are still players that could come in via the portal process. And a reminder for you guys, the portal window closed about 2 weeks ago. So actually, no, just over a week ago. Players needed to go into the portal at that time. They do not need to come out of the portal in that same time frame. Once you're in the portal, you can come out at any point. So now that BYU is well into their winter semester, it's going to be very, very difficult for any player to join BYU in terms of committing right now, signing with the Cougars, and getting enrolled right away. And I look at this in terms of what BYU is trying to accomplish this season as a situation that BYU knows what they're still looking for, but they're not going to be freaking out looking at the point that they need to absolutely go out and get that player enrolled right away, get them engrossed in this university, even though it would be nice. But understand that take your time, identify the right player or players, and then get them in when you can possibly get them in. That would probably be at the end of this winter semester going into spring term. So that's what we're looking at in terms of BYU and what they're looking for. So without further ado, here are the positions that I believe BYU is still looking for. Number one, still looking for a backup quarterback. Now, is this a backup quarterback that's going to come in and push Bear Bachmeier for starting minutes, starting role? No, I don't think so, because I think you already have guys on this roster in Treyson, Bourguet and Enoch Watson, among others, who are expected to push a guy like Bear in spring ball. This person is coming in to round out a room that you need to fill just another body in that room to obviously balance practice reps, maybe run the scout team, and ultimately, if, like I said, against all odds, knock on wood, everything goes haywire, well, they're a player you feel like can run this BYU offense. I'm sure Aaron Roderick will have a keen eye out there in terms of what guys are remaining in the portal, and if he finds the right guy, he will not hesitate to bring that player in. Number two, BYU on the offensive side of the football still probably needs to add maybe another offensive lineman, and particularly maybe an offensive tackle. I think they've got a lot of young talent in this room, and they've added three offensive linemen via the portal already. But I look at this as you're trying to make sure that that offensive line room has as much talent, as much depth, and ultimately enough guys to really have that iron sharpens iron edge. TJ Woods has done an incredible job transforming this BYU offensive line that he kind of slipped under Daryl Funk. And obviously the offensive line was a big strength with Eric Mateos and Jeff Grimes before that. He is, speaking of Coach Woods, made it a strength for BYU's offense once again, but I still think there may be one more guy out there that they might be able to find. Might be a guy who's a developmental prospect you're looking at and saying, okay, maybe he's a freshman or a sophomore, but we believe if we get him in here and work with him, he could become a really nice piece in time. I think they need to look at that. I also believe the BYU on the defensive line might want to add another body at defensive tackle, because John Taumoepeau is hoping and still waiting, as far as I'm aware, for a waiver to play next season. He ultimately wants to get his junior college year back, and those have been kind of hit or miss in terms of you actually get that or you don't get that. If he doesn't get it, well, that could thin BYU's defensive front a little bit, and you may want to find a guy out there who can come in and fill that role. Or, once again, as Kelly Papinga has said, they're just going to roll with the guys that they have along this defensive front. The final position I think BYU may look at in terms of a need is a kicker. Now, Will Ferrin was absolute nails last year for BYU. I think he was absolutely awesome. And they do have an incoming freshman in Brody Laga, who has got, as one of my former, not my former, a really dear friend and coworker of mine has described, he has what he calls a cannon for a left leg. He's a left-footed kicker. And who knows what he's going to look like coming home off that mission. I think the BYU, if they can find a guy out there that is capable of being what Will Ferrin was, and I don't know if that exists out there in the portal market, to be clear, but they may want to see if they can find something out there. I think they may roll with what they have internally, but I also look at it in terms of saying, okay, you found Will Ferrin out of the transfer portal. Obviously, he was a local kid from Utah, but playing at Boise State, ended up becoming one of the better kickers in recent memory in BYU football history. Can you do it again? I think you may look at that. So those are kind of the positions I'm still looking at. Some of you may say they want to find another wide receiver, but if you kind of look at the numbers that BYU has, there's not a lot of roster spots open right now. And BYU's got, I think, is it 14, maybe 13 or 14 wide receivers already on this roster. And that's a lot of bodies. So I think wide receiver might be filled up, and they're just going to have to hope that internal development, guys like Reggie Frischneck, Tei Nakua, take that next step and join Parker Kingston and JoJo Phillips in terms of becoming that force at wide receiver. Maybe it is that we see one of these underrated freshmen, not underrated, but like I'm trying to say underestimated wide receiver freshman coming in. I think of a guy like Legend Glasgow or one of the Pula twins, or heck, even Terrence Sarion. Maybe they prove to be the difference. So that's what I think BYU football is looking for here. And like I said, it's much easier said than done right now with regards to the portal, because it's fairly picked over at this point, but there are still hundreds of guys out there in the portal. They entered for various reasons. Some of them got bad advice from agents. Some of them are looking for just a better opportunity or a new outlook on their football career by going somewhere else, or simply put, they were told to leave the program they were at. Can BYU weed through those guys out there in the portal and find those diamonds in the rough? They've done it before, and the hope is that they will do it again, and they can find guys that will come to BYU, represent BYU with distinction, and ultimately maybe emerge as guys that BYU can rely upon in future seasons, if not this season as well. All right, that is going to do it for this Monday edition of the show. As always, thank you for your support of this podcast. Like I said, 17,000 of you on YouTube, thousands more listening to it in the audio formats, and 7.5 years into this, I am just baffled and appreciative at how much support this show gets. And it's a credit, once again, to those of you out there who have done what you have done over the years to support this podcast. I know some of you have been riding with me since day one, and you guys know who you are. We talk often, but thank you, honestly, for everything you guys have meant to this show. And as always, thank you for making it your first listen today. Now go make your second listen. Our friends over at Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin's doing a great job over there. And if you're not necessarily interested in the bigger picture of college football, check out Locked On Big 12 as well. Drake's killing it with our show that covers this conference that BYU calls home. And once again, join the Everydayer Club, Locked On Cougars at supercast.com. Get all the perks that are available to you as an everydayer right here on this podcast. And once again, as I often say, as we sign off every single show, come back tomorrow and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.